And let's do today's Chitat, today's Torah portion. You know, in Chabad, there's the custom that every day they do a portion of the Chumash, because the Chumash is divided up into 7 readings. That's what's read on Shabbat. So we do one of those readings with Rashi, at least with Rashi, and then we do also Chitat, Torah, Chitat is Chumash, Tehillim, Psalms. The Psalms are divided up. They're divided up into 5 books and also into 7 days of the week, and also into the 30 days of the month. So every day there's a different little portion of Psalms that we say. There's 150 Psalms. So we finish it in the course of a month. So every day we say another part. And also Tanya, the Tanya is also divided up into about 365 portions. So every day there's another portion that we say, and that way we finish it in the whole year. So we finish the Chumash once a year, and the Tanya once a year, and the Tehillim we finish once every month. Okay, so this is today's portion. Today's reading is, we're learning Parshat Mishpatim. Elohim lo tekalel. All right, there's different opinions that this is talking about judges or it's talking about God, but we'll see. Elohim lo tekalel. Do not curse judges. The nasi ba'amcha, and the head of your people, the leader of the people, don't. Another word for curse. Curse. Rashi. Elohim lo tekalel. This is a warning about Birkat Hashem, not to use God's name negatively or not to say bad things about God. That's what Birkat Hashem means, usually. It means speaking badly about God. And that's what it says in the 10 Commandments, don't take God's name in vain. That refers more exactly to taking a false oath in God's name. And this is referring to saying negatively, speaking bad things about the Almighty. And it's also, the same sentence is also a warning about not cursing judges, not to curse the judge. And here he says in the Sforno, don't curse the judge, even though that you might think, even though you think that the judge, he received bribery and that he was biased in his judgment, don't curse him. Because a person cannot, the judge, he doesn't know that he's done anything wrong and he thinks he's doing okay, so don't curse him. And it also says, it says also, the leader of your people, this is talking about the king. V'reyato halarov sibat ra. What does it mean that you, here it says, even though you see that he's the king, if he's bad, that this is bad for the whole entire country. Like it says, Yirei Hashem b'ni umelech. Like it says, fear God, and then you can be a good king. Ve'im sonim al titarev. But on the other hand, it says those people that hate him, don't mix up with those people. Don't curse the king. You want to criticize what he does. What he does is different. But who he is, you're not supposed to curse. Here is another nasi. It also refers to the head of the Sanhedrin. But that's a judge. And in general, you're not supposed to curse the judge if he makes a bad decision. So even if you hate the rabbi, it says that a rabbi that is not hated by his whole congregation is not a good rabbi. Because a rabbi is not a person that's really nice and everybody likes him. A genuine rabbi, I don't know if that's the way now, but in general, rabbis go against the nature of people. Because people want to do according to human nature, and the rabbis, they want to do according to what it says in the Torah, and often they're exactly the opposite. And because he has a congregation of Jews, that they choose him to be rabbi, so they're religious people, so they sort of know the laws themselves, so therefore they can say, you know, who made you rabbi? We're the ones, so you have to do what we say, not we do what you will say, and etc. And that makes big problems. So it says, avoid the problems, don't curse the rabbi, the leader, the judge, then the king, people that are over you. If you want to, come to them with complaints and explain to them why you disagree, etc. But cursing them, you're not supposed to curse. Cain said, I'm sorry. Oh, where it is. Okay. Malayatcha v'dimacha lo ta'acher. Well, this is talking about giving the gifts and the tithes to the holy temple when you're supposed to give it. And we're going to see what this means. You have to give a tenth of your produce. You have to give from the wine. You have to give it from the oil. And it says, "Bechor bonecha titen li." The firstborn of your sons you should give to me. And what does it mean you should give to? What does it mean? So we'll see. It means you should devote them to Torah. Let's look and see. Malayatcha chovat amutalat alecha kishetimale. Why is it called malayatcha? Means when it reached the time, the full time that you have to bring your produce to the holy temple. There's portions that you have to give to the Levite. There's portions that you have to give to the Kohen. But you only give it when your produce is ripe and is ripe to give. Then you have to give. And also there's the firstborn, a bikurim, the first fruits. You also have to give. And dimacha, also your dimacha. Dimacha, this is your truma. Truma is the portion that you're supposed to give to the Kohen. It says Rashi, I never saw this word. What is this lesson? Dimacha. This is the only time it's used. You can't compare it anywhere else. Lo ta'acher, do not bring them late. Lo tashena seder aparshan son. Do not mix up the order in which you're supposed to give them. La'acher et muktam, lahaktim et muchar. When you bring your produce, for instance, to in the holy temple, you're supposed to give first of all your truma gdola. It's called truma, and then after that you give what's called meiser rishon, and then the Levite, he has to give what's called trumat meiser, and then you give what's called meiser sheni. These are different gifts that you have to give, and there's also other orders. You'll see. It says, what does it mean? For instance, you shouldn't bring truma before you bring the first fruits, and you shouldn't bring meiser, the portion that you give to the Levite. You shouldn't give to the portion precede that to what you give to the Kohen. Bechor bonecha titen li, the first of your firstborn, the firstborn of your sons give to me. What is this talking about? The human beings. There's a mitzvah that the firstborn son, you have to redeem him after 30 days. If a woman that never gave birth before, and the first child that she gives birth to is a son, not a daughter, and he lives 30 days, at least the 30th day, after the 30 days are finished, so you have to you have to call a Kohen, and you have to redeem the firstborn son. Livdoso b'chamei salim. That's what it's called for the Kohen. Halo kavar tziva. This commandment already exists in another place. Elokadei lismoch yen taaseh l'shorecha. Because this is in order to put it right next to it, juxtapose this commandment, which is called, you're supposed to also give the ox when it's 30 days. What does that mean? What are you supposed to give the ox when it's 30 days? Where is that commandment? You don't have to redeem your firstborn ox. What is this talking about? Ma b'chor adam, just like the firstborn of a person, you have to redeem him after 30 days. Like it says, Pri David ben chodesh tivdeh, also the firstborn of your animals, you have to give them to the Kohen, the kamatapa, but you have to give it to him after 30 days. You have to wait till the firstborn animal is 30 days old, and you have to feed it and take care of it. Not up to the Kohen to do it, and give him an animal that's already ready to go, ready to walk, and etc. That doesn't have to worry about it and clean it, etc. And then afterwards, you go give it to the Kohen. So that's what the 30 days is. That's what it says. It says, this is a continuation. Just as you give your firstborn son when he's 30 days old, there's a lot of details about it. It has to be born in not a cesarean section, etc. So You have to give the firstborn of your son, you have to redeem him. It's called redeem him. You give money to the Kohen, you redeem. The reason you redeem is because it was supposed to be before the sin of the golden calf. It was supposed to be that the Levites, they were supposed to be the ones. I'm sorry. It was supposed to be that the firstborn, they were the ones that were the Kohens. They were supposed to be the Kohanim. And afterwards they wrecked it up so that they weren't anymore. They lost their priestship, and they were supposed to be the Kohen. They were supposed to work in the Holy Temple, etc. But then they lost that, and the others took over. The Kohens, the sons of Aaron, etc. They took over. So therefore, now you have a firstborn son. You're supposed to redeem him, give him to the Kohen, right? It's like you're saying to the Kohen, my firstborn son, he should have been working in the temple. So in the places, I want you to free him. You give it to the Kohen, and the Kohen says, okay, you're free. Shivas Yomim. So it is 7 days, it should be with his mother, and the 8th day, you should give it to me. You're not supposed to slaughter animals before they are 8 days old. But it doesn't mean you have to slaughter them. But you shouldn't slaughter. If you do want to slaughter an animal, you should try to wait until it is 8 days old, if you know. This is a warning to the Kohen that if he wants to hurry up his sacrifices, he shouldn't do it before the sacrifice is 8 days old, because this is lacking time. When the Holy Temple was there, if a Kohen brought a sacrifice and the sacrifice was not, a person brought a sacrifice and it was not yet 8 days old, and the Kohen slaughtered it, right? So the person was not fulfilled the obligation, because the sacrifice was choser zaman. It didn't have enough time. It wasn't 8 days old. And the 8th day, you should give it to me. So you might think that every animal, when he's 8 days old, you have to give it on that day to the Holy Temple, which would mean there would be a big lack of meat in Israel. All the animals would have to be, the Kohanim would have a lot. Like it says, that's what it says, the 8th day. And it says over another place, just like the 8th day that said, over there is only from the 8th day you can give it for an offering. Also here, the 8th day, which is speaking about here, is just telling when you can give it to an offering, but you don't have to give it. You are allowed to and permitted to, but you are not obligated to give every animal that is under 8 days to the Holy Temple. It says also the same thing with your ox. You could give that as when you know the firstborn, when you're sure that it is a sustainable animal. The animal is not going to die. In other words, it lived 30 days, then you know it can live on its own. Right. Interestingly enough, it says that so it goes like this. A human being, once the child lives 30 days, then you know that the child is going to continue living, that he's a strong enough child, a sustaining child, that he'll live 30 days. An animal, once the animal lives 8 days, you know that the animal is going to live on its own, and you can bring it for a sacrifice. The firstborn animals, that you have to wait for 30 days in order to hand that over to the Kohen, and then the firstborn animal, he can do what he wants to with it. Anshe Kodesh Tiyunli, you have to be a holy nation to me. And meat in the field that is treif, you should not eat it. You have to throw it to a dog. Throw it to the dog. Okay, what does it mean, treifa? The simple meaning of treifa means an animal that died on its own. You find it dead in the field, don't eat it. But that's really nevela. Nevela means an animal that did not die according to the laws of the Torah. In other words, according to the laws of the Torah, if an animal died on its own, or if it was run over by a truck, or whatever reason it was, If an animal was not slaughtered properly according to the laws of ritual, they call it ritual, according to Torah slaughtering, then it's forbidden to eat that animal or bird. So, for instance, if you slaughtered and actually cut off its head, that animal is not kosher, but it's not called treifa. That's called nevela. It did not die properly. Treifa really means, the word treifa means an animal that had some sort of a disease or a blemish or a wound in its inner organs that it usually would not live a year with these, right? The spinal cord was broken, there was a hole in the heart and the lungs, etc. Those are the stomach. Usually an animal that has that, it won't live for more than a year. That's called treifa. There's also laws. Treifa also means an animal that was, how do you say, clawed, a cow, a sheep, whatever, that was clawed by a lion or by a eagle or something like that. That's treifa also. That's called treifa. In any case, it's very interesting. So it says, you are a holy nation to me, but meat that is in the field that's treifa, don't eat. It doesn't mean even not only in the field, anywhere. If it's treifa, in other words, either it was a diseased animal. There's not every disease is called treifa, by the way. There's only certain ones. You have to learn the laws right in the beginning of the book of Yeridea. Don't eat. To kelev tashlichunoto, you have to throw it to the dogs. Right in the beginning of Yeridea is the laws of slaughtering, but right after that comes the laws of what's kosher, of treifas. Right, if there's a hole in the food pipe, it's different than if there's the hole in the air pipe. A little tiny hole in the food pipe makes it treif, and a windpipe is a bigger hole. Except that there's a lot of different laws. Because that's going to make you holy by eating only kosher meat. It makes you holy. Let's look at Rashi. Anshe kodesh tiyunu. You have to be a holy nation to me. Im atem kadoshim. If you are holy and removing yourself mishukutzei nevelos v'treifos, from disgusting animals which are died on their own or died improperly, or their treifos, they had a disease, then you are me. Anshe kodesh tiyu li. You will be a holy nation to me. Then you are my nation. V'imlo, and if you eat all sorts of disgusting things, then you're not my nation. In other words, God is not saying that you're not Jewish anymore, but he's saying that I have a good reason that I don't want to have anything to do with you, even though God does not do that, at least anymore. But the reasons are there. Basar b'sadat treifa, it says that meat that is in the field and that it is tereif, that it has been disqualified from eating, only in the field, right? Says Rashi, no. Af b'bayit kain. Also, if it's in your house, right? You have a sheep in your backyard and you want to slaughter it, and it brushed up against a big nail in the fence, put a hole in its lung. That's it. The animal is treif. So it says not only in the field, ela davar katuv b'havo, also in your house, but it's but diber katuv b'havo b'hoveh. The Torah is just talking about what usually is. Usually, animals in the field, they get attacked by wolves or whatever. Shederech behemot litoref. In the field, animals get ridden up. That's what we're going to see about the dog. It says you have to give it to the dog because the dog protects the animal. You can't, we're going to see the Sforno, he says that. Or Das Zakanim, where is it? Yeah, and Das Zakanim. We'll see. 1 second. So it says the kelev tashlichunoto, you have to throw this to the dogs. You have an animal that is blemished, right? Like we said, it had a hole in the lungs or something. So you can't eat the meat. You have to give it to the dogs. Avhu o eno ela kelev kamashmo. It says you have to give it to the dogs. You don't have to throw it to the dogs. You can give it to a non-Jew. You can give it to anybody that doesn't, right? A non-Jew can also eat it. Why does it say dogs? Because it says, Ella Oh, Eino elo kelev kumashmo. Maybe you have to give it. No, maybe the Torah says you have to give it to the dogs. Maybe it's forbidden to give it to anybody else. Oh, machor lenachri. It says no. Later on, it says benavela ola machor lenachri. You can sell it to a non-Jew. How much more so? The treva from a treifa shemutrat b'kolana, that it says by treif, animal that's treif, you can get any pleasure you want to from it. There are certain things like meat and milk, if you boil it together, the Torah says you can't get any pleasure from it whatsoever. But here it says you're allowed to get pleasure from it. Therefore, why does it say to the dog? Why does it say you have to give it to the dog? You don't have to give it to the dog. You can use it for fertilizer in your field. You can sell it to non-Jews, right? It's perfect. The animal is perfectly fine. It just had a hole in its lung. That's just a nonsensical law, which is in Judaism, but it's it's above sense. So why can't you sell it? You can sell it to a non-Jew. It's perfectly healthy. It says, but so why does it say then the Torah though to give it to a dog? That's what it says, is give it to a dog. It says to teach you that God does not withhold reward from any creation. It says when the Jews left Egypt, that the dogs did not even stick out their tongues. They didn't bark at them. God said, give it the reward. Here we see in the Natsachinim, he says an interesting thing. He says, because the dog, why give it to the dog? The fact is, you can give it to a treif animal. You can give it to anyone. You can sell it in a store if you wanted to. Even though it does say that a Jew is really not supposed to make a living from not kosher things. But nevertheless, you can give it, right? You have the servants that work in your house, and your ox happened to be that a little thorn went into his food pipe. It makes it treif. You can't eat it. The ox is totally kosher. It says, nevertheless, a Jew can't eat it. You can give it to anybody you want. Why does it say in the Torah then you have to give it to a dog? It says, because the dog, he sacrificed his life for this treifas when it was in, let's say if there's a wolf running after it, so the dog runs and jumps at the wolf. So therefore, don't be ingratitude, what do they call it? An ingrate, and withhold his reward from him. Therefore, when you have an animal that is not good, then you can sell it, throw it to the dogs. They say there's another, if you look in these books of shchita, that says that if there is a butcher or a shochet, a ritual slaughterer, that he sells not kosher meat. Now, this is a very, very tricky thing because it's very, very easy to sell not kosher meat. In fact, there used to be times where there was Jews that were called maskilim, and these Jews were called maskilim. They were Talmud scholars, and they went against Judaism, and they wanted to make other Jews sin and to leave Judaism. It was a very, very, and they were very successful at it, unfortunately. And what they would do is they would come into communities and pose as religious Jews, and they knew all the laws, they knew the whole Torah, but they just liked the freedom or whatever. So they would offer their services to be a shochet, and a lot of times they were very expert shochtim. But what they would do is before they would slaughter the animal, they would put a little nick in the knife. Or if there's a little nick in the knife, then that disqualifies the animal. Disqualifies, makes no sense, but that's the law. It disqualifies the animal. The animal cannot be eaten. But nobody knew. Nobody knew. They would feed the whole entire congregation not kosher meat. By eating this not kosher meat, as people would start to have doubts in God. Strange, but true. Eating not kosher food brings a person's, how do you say it? It stuffs up a person's soul. So he doesn't feel. That's what we're learning in the Hasidic Maimer in the morning. Feeling is so very important, to feel godliness. So they wouldn't feel. And because of that, it was very easy for them to convince other people to come and go with them. And there was just a big story in America. Where was it? In Muncie somewhere, I don't remember. That they found that there was a butcher, that he would buy not kosher meat, not kosher chickens, which are like half of the price or something, half of the price, because kosher, you have to have somebody watching it all the time, and you have to have all these shochtim that are very expert people. And it's not kosher meat. You just bring anybody from the street. They just have to stand there and chop off heads or whatever they do. So he bought not kosher meat, and he forged the stamps and of the kosher, and he sold it to people. I think for a long time, a year, I don't know, a long time. He sold it to people. Well, it says in the Shechita books that if a person does this, if he's a shochet or a butcher that intentionally sells not kosher meat, that he becomes reincarnated as a dog. He becomes reincarnated as a dog. Yes, Judaism believes in reincarnation and also into animals. Here it is. And he becomes reincarnated into a dog. And that's why it says that you give the treif meat to the dog. Now he has to be a dog and eat instead of him. It says he withheld the meat from the dogs when he was alive. He should have given the meat to the dogs when he was alive, but he didn't. He sold it to people because he wanted to make money. So the dogs lost out when he was alive. Now he gets reincarnated as a dog, and he gets to eat the treif meat. And maybe there could be a lot of people that would enjoy that. Could be, but they say that being reincarnated into an animal is a torture for the soul. That's what it says. I don't know, could be. We can talk about that in another time. Ready? Let's go a little further. Lo tisa shem shava. Do not take false. Do not accept false testimony. Al tashes yercha in Russia, and do not put your hand in with evil people. Liot eid Hamas, to be a destructive witness. What does it mean? Lo tisa shem shava. Lo tekabel sham the sheker. Don't receive lies. This is a warning, l'kabel lashon hora, not to receive lashon hara. Okay, what does lashon hara mean? Technically, lashon hara is not exactly this, but lashon hara is a general name for saying things that could be damaging to others. Saying things that could be damaging to others. And we're not talking about giving testimony. If you see somebody kill someone else, you're supposed to go and give testimony. Here we're talking about saying bad things about other people that are true, even if they're true. Generally speaking, the word lashon hara is a general name for all of this harmful speech. But exactly when you're speaking exactly, lashon hara means saying true things about people that are damaging. Right? True things that are damaging about a person. Oh, look what a nice car he's got. Look what a nice, I wonder where he got his money from. Right? True things. Saying false things about people, that's called motzi shem ra. Motzi shem ra. Right? I saw that he did this. I heard that he did this. False things. So in other words, don't accept lashon hara. If you hear someone speaking bad about someone else, say, listen, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Do me a favor. I think this is lashon hara. I think you're doing a sin. Please, I don't want to hear it. Yeah. No. It's a big mitzvah. I tell everybody about who this person is, and that's it. Okay, maybe you're right. But maybe you're wrong. Leave me alone. Ula dayan. This is also for a judge. Shelo yishma divrei baldin ad shivo baldin chavero. Lo yishma shem shava. You should not listen to the testimony for nothing. And there's a testimony. It's supposed to be a court case. One person starts saying, you know what my wife did to me, she did it, she stole it, she did this, that, right? Just 1 second, wait for his wife to come in and let her see, right? Let's see. Maybe he was making the whole thing up. I'll touch it. Don't put your hand with an evil person. One person who makes a false claim against his friend, shivticha, that he says, and I will be liot lo eid Hamas, says, listen, me and you will get together and we'll testify against Shmerel, right? What do you say? We'll go together. I'll give you $500. That's a good $500 just to say a couple words. Yeah, I just say I agree. That's what 500. You know what? 5,000. Okay, what do you say? Don't do it. It's a big sin. Don't put your hand with an evil person to give wrong testimony. Lo si'acharei rabim. Don't go after the majority to do bad. What does that mean? It says don't answer on an argument to incline. After the majority, you should incline. Okay, what does this mean? What does this mean? We're talking about this. This sentence makes no sense, right? Don't go after the majority for bad. And don't answer on an argument to incline. After the majority, you should go. Here it says you shouldn't go after the majority, and here it says you should go after the majority. And here it says don't even answer on an argument. So it's a long Rashi, and I want it to sort of end, but let's see what the Rashi says here. It says there's a lot of explanations on this, but the simple meaning of the sentence doesn't exactly seem to go according to any of these interpretations. So therefore they say like this, that you should not go for bad after one judge. You have 10 judges saying one thing and 11 judges saying the person is guilty, and 10 say you shouldn't go after the 11 judges. Is that so? It's not so. You'll see. You have to go after Rabbi Muhatot, that if there are two people that are more, if you have 13 people saying that he's guilty and 11 people saying that he's innocent, then you can do it. Then you can do it. What are we talking? What is this? This is certainly not the law. This is not the law. We go after the majority. We always go after the majority. You can have a court case of 3 judges, and if 2 say one thing and the other says the other, you go after the 2, whether it's for bad or good. So this is talking about dini nefashos. This is talking about capital punishment, killing someone. The emsa mikra drushu, lo tane al riv, don't. It says that if there's an argument that it's tanriv she'en chokim al mufla shebebeis. You're not allowed to go against the chief rabbi of the court. So therefore, anytime there's a court case, especially if it's a case of capital punishment, they start from minatzad, from the lower, the katanim, to the smallest of the judges. They first of all ask, and then afterwards it finally gets up to the highest ones, so that the smallest ones, judges won't be afraid to go against the older. And that's what it means. Don't go after the majority, after a majority of 1, in order to have a person killed because of 1 judge. There has to be 2 judges. They said, lo tana al riv, it should be, there should be a yud here. So don't go after lo tana al rav. Don't go after 1 rabbi. Rav, 1 rabbi. What should you go after? The majority. A lot of times, sometimes that you do go after a majority. Here, achrei rabim, sometimes you do go after the majority. When? If there's 2 people that are say that that you should punish this person by death, so therefore it seems to imply that after bad you shouldn't go. So if so, it means that after good you can go. So here we learn that what? That if there are, let's say, in a case of dini nefashos, there are 11 judges that say that he's guilty and 12 judges say he's innocent, then you go after the majority of 1. But if it was the other way around, if there was a majority of 1 to kill, you don't go. It has to be 2 people. Okay, there's more. It says, lo ta'aneh al riv. Okay, let's go here. Lo tiyeh acharei rabim l'ra'ot. Don't go after the majority to do bad. What does this mean? These are all discussed in the Talmud at great length. If you see evil people that you know are bad and that they're inclining the judgment, lo tomar, don't say, because they're the majority, so I'll go after them. I don't want any trouble. Don't do it. You have to say what is true and what you think is true. You're not supposed to go after the majority just because it's the majority. Right? Even though you say, listen, I'm not going to win anyway. So why should I state my point? They have 12 people already, and all I have is I'm like the 11th person. I'm going to lose for sure. It says, nevertheless, state your point. Don't join the bad just because they're the majority. Lotan al riv latot. If, what does it mean? If the one who is the litigant, the one that has been judged, asks you, tell me, Mr. Judge, which way did you judge? Did you judge me innocent or guilty? Don't answer him. At the shofet me'emoto. Don't say, listen, I didn't vote against you. Shmerel, he voted against you. Ella Omar at the Mishpat Kasheru. Just say, listen, I'm sorry, 12 people said you're guilty. 11 people said you're innocent. I'm not going to tell you which side I was in, and I'm not going to tell you who voted against you. And then, if it was wrong, the judgment was wrong, then let Hashem take care of it. You don't have to take care of it. You don't have to say, listen, I thought you were innocent. That you're not allowed to do that after the court. Even though we see in regular courts that they do, each judge publishes his opinion, right? What he thought, and the dissenting opinions are published. But here it says, at least in corporal punishment, you're not supposed to do that. That ends today's class. God bless you all. Hope to see you tomorrow morning at 8:15 for Chassidut. Have a good day with Mashiach now.